Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Today we are seeing the most significant act of principled defiance against Donald Trump's lawlessness since he retook the Oval Office. It all kicked off when Donald Trump's own acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District, appointed by Trump for New York, resigned after less than just a month on the job. Her name is Danielle Sassoon. You see her there. She stepped down this afternoon after Trump's Department of Justice ordered her to drop the federal government's corruption case against New York City's Democratic Mayor Eric Adams, something she refused to do. And to be clear about the context here, Sassoon is not a what you would call resistance liberal. She was appointed by Donald Trump 3 weeks ago. She was a member of the right-wing legal organization, the Federalist Society. She clerked for the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, one of the fathers of modern conservative legal thought. But today, Sassoon put her loyalty to the rule of law ahead of her ideological affiliations. In a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Sassoon said in no uncertain terms that the deal to halt Adams' prosecution, with the possibility of reviving the charges at some future date, was part of a backdoor deal to get Adams to support Trump's immigration crackdown in New York. Sassoon recalls a meeting with the acting Deputy Attorney General, Emil Bovee, and the mayor's lawyers. All right, everyone's in the room. And here I quote from Sassoon's letter. Adams' attorneys repeatedly urged what amounted to a quid pro quo, indicating that Adams would be in a position to assist with the department's enforcement priorities only if the indictment were dismissed. Adding, rather than be rewarded, Adams' advocacy should be called out for what it is, an improper offer of immigration enforcement assistance in exchange for a dismissal of his case. Now, a lawyer for Mayor Adams denies those allegations, saying in part, the idea that there was a quid pro quo is a total lie. We offered nothing and the department asked nothing of us. But I got to say, that's complicated by the letter that Emil Bovee himself sent to Sassoon back on Monday, which we covered on the show, in which he ordered her to drop the charges explicitly so that Adams can more effectively enforce Trump's immigration policy. Because, as Bovee argues, the pending prosecution has unduly restricted Mayor Adams' ability to devote full attention and resources to the illegal immigration and violent crime that escalated under the policies of the prior administration. Crime, by the way, is down in New York considerably over the last few years. Now, realizing the optics here, right, of putting this to paper, Bovee then hastily added one of the most incredible footnotes I've ever seen in a government document. After laying out, like, we want you to pause the prosecution so that the mayor can help us on immigration, he then added a footnote, just to be clear, that there was nothing untoward going on. As Mr. Bovee clearly stated to defense counsel during our meeting, the government is not offering to exchange dismissal of a criminal case for Adams' assistance on immigration enforcement. No, obviously that's not what they're doing, right? Now, in another letter to Sassoon today, Bovee then accused her of going on a political witch hunt, specifically pursuing a politically motivated prosecution despite an express instruction to dismiss the case. But that witch hunt argument does not hold water when you recall this case was, let's remember, brought against Adams, a Democrat, by Joe Biden's Department of Justice and his personally appointed U.S. attorney, which alleged the mayor abused his position to solicit bribes and illegal campaign donations, allegations Adams denies. So Sassoon basically writes a letter to Bovee. She says, I can't do it in good conscience. Like, I cannot uphold my oath to the Constitution, my professional duties, and walk into court and do this. I'll resign instead. Sassoon is now gone. The case has not been dropped. Things get even more complicated from here. Listen up. So after Sassoon resigns, the case is then transferred to the DOJ's public integrity section based in Washington. Bovee clearly being like, screw these people in the Southern District of New York. We'll do it here at Main Justice. Well, guess what happened? That section's acting head, a guy named John Keller, also refused to drop the case. He also resigned. The case was then transferred yet again to Kevin Driscoll, the acting head of the Justice Department's criminal division. Driscoll, too, refused to drop the case. He resigned as well. After that, 3 more senior members of the DOJ's public integrity section, these are the people that investigate corruption, resigned as well after meeting with Bovee about the Mayor Adams case. If you're keeping track, 6 resignations today alone in response to the blatant corruption of Trump's deal. When push came to shove, they stood up for the rule of law in the face of an increasingly lawless Trump administration. In her letter to Attorney General Bondi, Sassoon noted how her time clerking for Justice Scalia instilled in me a sense of duty to contribute to the public good, uphold the rule of law, and a commitment to reasoned and thorough analysis. Donald Trump, I would say, doesn't really share those commitments. What he cares about is wielding raw power, in this case, appearing to dangle conditional freedom to Mayor Eric Adams in exchange for Adams' cooperation with his planned mass deportations. Something Adams has seemingly been angling for, I mean, as we all watch this happen, right? He flew down to Mar-a-Lago to meet Trump last month. So when Bovee ordered the charges to be dropped this week, it seemed nakedly obvious what was happening. And now we know Trump's own prosecutor thought exactly what we did. You may be wondering, where was the mayor of New York, Eric Adams? Where was he today as all this unfolded? Well, I'll tell you what he was doing. He was doing exactly what Donald Trump wants him to be doing. First, Adams met with Trump's so-called border czar earlier today. Shortly after, in a reversal of the city's long-standing sanctuary city policies, Adams announced this afternoon he would allow Trump's federal ICE agents into the Rikers Island prison complex. And Trump's border czar isn't exactly hiding the fact that he told Adams to do so.
So I left today with some good things. I left today with a plan to incorporate some other things we're putting in place. I'm asking, give us a presence back in Rikers Island. That's something the mayor committed to today. And we'll take movements in having that ICE presence at Rikers Island.
Trump's guy asked for it. And guess what? Mayor Eric Adams obliged. Would you look at that? Christy Greenberg serves as a federal prosecutor in that very same U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern District of New York. Harry Litman's a former U.S. attorney and former deputy assistant attorney general at the Department of Justice and Maine Justice. Ryan Riley is our ace justice reporter for NBC News. They all join me now. Ryan, I want to go to you because I don't think the story is complete here yet for a few reasons. The case has still not been dropped. As far as I know, right, no government lawyer has done the thing that Bovee wanted Sassoon to do, which she said, I just cannot in good conscience do, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm glad I got our pre-write in order, like when the hours went by after that order came down from the Deputy Attorney General saying drop this case, and there was no action on the docket for so long. It was clear that something was bubbling behind the scenes here. And, you know, these are the sort of moments I think that federal prosecutors are prepared for. It's not something that they seek out. But, you know, in the case of the Public Integrity Unit, you literally had prosecutors who had integrity in their job title. So the idea that they're just going to like sit down and go along and to get along is sort of absurd, right? This isn't something that they walked in thinking that, you know, oh, this is the day that I'm going to, you know, draw my line in the sand. But I do think it's kind of shocking how quickly we've gotten to so many lines being crossed, because that's something I just thought coming into this administration is you're going to have all of these lines. People are going to be able to have to find their line, where their line is. And today, a number of people inside the public integrity section decided that this was their line. This is not something that they could do. So that's really how this has played out, but it still hasn't been dismissed. The real, I think, crux of this is just why hasn't the Deputy Attorney General just filed the motion himself, right? And that's something I put to one of my sources. And their point was, well, the public integrity section was awfully involved with those criminal cases against Donald Trump that we had going in up until a few months ago. And this was sort of a way of sort of clearing the decks there in a lot of ways, right? They already forced out the head of the public integrity section. This was, you know, a few weeks, but it feels like years ago, by saying that he had to join this sanctuary city task force, sort of closing the loop on all of this Eric Adams stuff. They tried to pivot him to that, something that had nothing at all to do with his background or experience. And that's what they sort of did to anybody who they didn't like or wanted to put in a certain role. So they tried to dump him there. He resigned. And then you had the acting head in, you know, and now now we're in this situation where, you know, it's not that big of a unit, but pretty quickly we're getting it's a narrowing down how many people are left there in the public integrity section.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of this, I don't think Donald Trump's going to shed a lot of tears if, like, the Office of Public Integrity Unit in the Department of Justice is totally gutted. Christy, you were on this program on Monday when this letter came out. We sat right here. I think both of us were kind of in shock, and in shock both at the brazenness of the letter, but also that it seemed that no one was reacting with the correct level of alarm. How are you feeling now after this has happened?
I mean, look, obviously, I'm incredibly proud of Danielle Sassoon and her team to have exactly the right reaction here. I mean, Emil Bovee can't say that this is a member of the deep state. As you point out, her conservative credentials could not be more stellar. But she got this right. And she, in this 8-page letter, eviscerated his arguments in the letter. I mean, it was like, get your popcorn out and read this, because if viewers at home are concerned and worried, where are the Republicans standing up for the rule of law? Like, well, Danielle Sassoon just proved that there are Republicans standing up for the rule of law. She exposed him in so many different ways. She points out that, yeah, you didn't consider the legal merits and the evidence in coming to this decision, directing me to dismiss the case. Why? Yeah, because we were adding more charges. We were going to say he obstructed justice,
That's right.
and we were going to point to all the evidence of him deleting evidence and directing others to do so and providing false information to the FBI. And then when we go to meet with his lawyers, and his lawyers are blatantly saying, we'll help out with immigration, but only if you dismiss the indictment, in what Emil Bovee says is akin to a prison exchange, which is clearly a quid pro quo. She also points out that during that, one member of her team is taking notes, which happens in every meeting that you have at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And Emil Bovee says, no notes. I'll collect those at the end. Like, why? I mean, she just exposed the fact that this was so plainly corrupt, and that the fact that she was able to stand up to it, and that these, again, very young career prosecutors were able to do the same. I'm just incredibly proud of them tonight.
Yeah, and one of the things that happens, Harry, is that she writes to Bovee saying, look, my team, we all agree on this, right? The letter back from Bovee, which we also have, which is just so contemptuous and big mad, I think is the best way to describe it. You know, he says, well, I'm going to put your team on administrative leave, and we're going to investigate you in the Office of Professional Ethics for recommendations, and maybe we don't know what else, sort of dangling out there what that might be. I mean,